I thought I'd be the last person to chime in on the Justin Baldoni Blake Lively drama, but as someone who's very justice oriented and wants to see good people get a fair trial, I just couldn't help myself. So if you're new here, I'm Dr. Nafisa Sekandari, a licensed clinical psychologist specializing in anxiety-based disorders. I also have a personal and familiar history of anxiety and OCD, and one of the traits of OCD is being fair-minded and justice-oriented. I've had many patients who talk about how upset they get when they're not treated fairly, or when things aren't evenly split, or when someone gets an unfair advantage at work or at home. So I used to be the same way, and I'd get very upset about the unfairness in the world and when things weren't balanced. I used to believe it was due to being a Libra. And if you know anything about the zodiac signs, Librans born mid-September to mid-October, they tend to be associated with balance due to the scales representing Libra. So my beliefs changed when I noticed my patients struggling with OCD having a similar mindset. OCD is more than just repetitive behaviors. It's deeply connected to a person's core beliefs and values. Many people with OCD can be highly conscientious, they can be morally sensitive, and they can be deeply principled. Of course, these traits aren't pathological by themselves. They're not even considered a disorder. And in fact, they're often associated with integrity and empathy. Also, these traits, among many others associated with OCD, when managed and controlled, they can be superpowers. I've actually made a video about OCD being the best disorder to have, and you can check it out right here. But when these values become rigid or tied to obsessive fears, they can manifest as OCD symptoms or become a disorder. For some people, justice orientation, it can manifest in an OCD disorder and become a subtype of OCD called moral or scrupulosity OCD. This is where the obsessions center around moral rightness. It can be around ethics or religious rules. The person may obsessively fear doing something unjust or unfair or be morally wrong. Of course, OCD has other subtypes or themes as well, such as contamination and cleanliness OCD, harm OCD, or the symmetry and orderliness OCD. None of these are automatically considered a disorder unless your actions become beyond your control and it begins to negatively impact your life. So what does this have to do with the Justin Baldoni, Blake Lively legal situation? Well, when I heard about the initial accusations of sexual misconduct by Justin Baldoni towards Blake Lively way back in December, I was shocked, but I was also really sad. I, like most people, initially believed Blake and assumed the worst about Justin Baldoni. I didn't know much about him except I had just finished watching the Jane the Virgin series on Netflix, and I really liked his character. But then I started reading more and more about the case, and my obsessive brain took hold, and down the rabbit hole I went. I started consuming all the content related to the case and watched play by play of the legal case unfolding by lawyers and industry leaders and PR people. And pretty quickly, it became obvious that an innocent man's life was being destroyed and false allegations were being made for reasons that had nothing to do with sexual abuse. As more and more information came out and video and audio evidence was shared by Baldoni's team, I just couldn't help the triggering of my fairness and justice-oriented traits. Although Baldoni's team shared all the text messages and shared video accounts refuting Lively's claims, nothing solid was coming out in support of Lively. Vague allegations with the promise to demonstrate her claims, but no solid evidence was coming from her legal team, and that was enough for me to not support her. She used to be one of my favorite actresses, and I thought her relationship banter with her husband was really cute. But recent video interviews from her past completely changed my mind about her. In today's world, propaganda and PR tends to sway the minds of the public, and truth rarely seems to matter anymore. I remember during the Johnny Depp trial, which I also watched hours and hours of the courtroom testimonies and saw with my own eyes the evidence that was being shared, but then I'd see how the media would spin the facts in favor of Amber Heard. She seemed to have a better PR team, but Johnny had the public behind him. The magazines and the TV shows were all skewed towards Amber Heard at the time, but the comments and the social media posts were in favor of Johnny Depp. The same pattern is being played out now. If you're not keeping up with the latest updates about this case, you would think that Blake and Ryan are innocent victims and that they're telling the truth based on all the awards they keep winning and the red carpet events that they keep attending and the glossy magazine covers that they keep landing on. But the public continues to support Baldoni. Why? As a consumer of all this content, I believe it's because his team has laid it all out for us to decide who's right and who's wrong. And her side hasn't provided anything more than believe her because she's a woman. As a woman, of course, I want to believe a woman who's been victimized or harassed in any way. But my core values cannot, under any circumstances, allow me to believe someone who I believe is lying. Also, the fact that her best friend and former dragon, Taylor Swift, who tends to be very quick to support victims of abuse, especially women, has been distancing herself from her and supposedly no longer considers her a friend. If the allegations were true, wouldn't Taylor have said something supporting her over the past 6 months and not try to distance herself? Her coworkers, although initially very supportive, have also gone silent, and so has the author of the book, Colleen Hoover. So what's going on? One of the ways I've lost many friendships over the years has been related to being lied to. My OCD brain doesn't like to be lied to. It triggers a sense of danger inside of me. I'm sure that's true for most people, but for me, it triggers my black and white thinking, my all good or all bad perspective on life. My brain automatically goes to, you're a bad person because you lie. Taylor Swift, who has shared to struggling with an OCD brain, tends to feel the same way, apparently. Obviously, I'm much more in control of my thoughts now, but this can lead to rigidity and compulsions for someone who has uncontrolled and unmanaged OCD. So in Blake's case, everything that has come out so far from her onstage interviews talking about how she just can't be an actress, but has this need to take over the script and to direct every movie project she's involved in, all of that seems very aligned with what seems to have happened in her movie with Justin Baldoni. Here's a clip of her saying all of this.
When I would show up on a set, I knew that they just wanted me to show up and look cute and stand on a little pink sticker where I'm supposed to go and say what I'm supposed to say. But I also knew that that wasn't fulfilling for me, that I wanted to be a part of the storytelling, that I wanted to be a part of the narrative. Sometimes I would have people who really resented that because they were like, we just hired you to be an actor. Yet when I went in the meetings, I would just seem like I'm just there to be the actor and ready to get the gig. I wouldn't reveal that I actually need to have authorship in order to feel fulfilled. So I think that for them, sometimes that might have felt like a rug pull because you're like, you're trying to assert yourself into something that we didn't hire you to do. And so it was a really strange position to be in.
What seems to have happened during this movie is she wanted to take over the series and push Baldoni out of the way, and maybe assumed that if she filed this little lawsuit, he wouldn't fight back. And maybe she was hoping that nobody would know about it. All of this is, of course, allegedly. I don't know what happened exactly, so this is pure speculation on my part. But thankfully, Justin had a billionaire backer that said, I'll go broke before I allow that to happen, and I'll support you every step of the way. Of course, allegedly. So now we're in this very messy, very expensive legal battle that we all get to watch unfold. If this is as captivating as the Depp versus Heard trial, I'm totally there for it. I'm really sad that it's not going to be televised, though. I want to see justice for Justin. I want to see good win over evil. I feel like this case represents a lot of the evil happening around the world right now, where the big and powerful think they can outspend and outspin the truth, but good will always win. Think about it. Always. This is what Gandhi had to say. These troubled times with breaking bad news being in our face 24/7 makes us more anxious, but that's only because we're not getting a break from all the bad that's happening in the world, all at the same time. I recently had a patient tell me that he's so angry that he wants the whole world to just burn and for all of this to end. But I want to remind you that this level of chaos has been happening for hundreds, if not thousands of years. People and governments have been trying to take over the world and control the population, but they haven't been successful yet. I'm very religious, and I deeply believe that God is ultimately in control and nothing bad will happen to this planet without God's will. I'm not going to get into it too much, but think about the last century at least. Think about every decade and how people were on the edge of their seats, but life went on anyway. I was recently watching a documentary about the musical band ABBA and noticed that around the time of ABBA's rise to fame, the world was in total chaos. It was so bad that a band singing happy tunes was rubbing people the wrong way, and there were protests to stop them from succeeding. An example of some of the things that were going on in the 70s was the Watergate scandal in the US, the Vietnam War, the Cultural Revolution in China, the military coups and dictatorships in Chile and Argentina, plus so many other issues that were cropping up all over Europe, Asia, Africa, and South America. Imagine how scared and angry people were about the state of the world to go to such lengths. The 70s, the time of ABBA's start, was when my world started falling apart too. That's when my country, Afghanistan, was invaded by Russia and led to my family's escape and ultimate resettlement in the United States. So yes, if we watch the news or totally surround ourselves with the latest scandal or consume mainstream media, we will activate our fight or flight, and we will have an anxious response about the state of the world. I noticed this in myself, and I had to create balance in my need to know the latest updates about the Baldoni Lively case. I know how obsessive my brain can get when it gets locked in, and if I'm not careful, if I'm not feeling in control, it can take over my world. The way that I create balance is to focus on what I actually have control over, take actions towards my goals in my personal and professional life, and also focus on self-care. One of the ways you can feel more in control of your OCD symptoms is to make sure that your central nervous system is calm. Because when you're feeling calm, you will be more in control of your reactions. I hope my patients and online students regain control of their lives from anxiety and OCD, and I help them feel empowered in the face of their symptoms. If you're interested in learning more or you want me to help you, you can go to drsekandari.com and you can register and watch my free video training. So leave a comment below and let me know if you're going down the rabbit hole with this case. And if so, what are your thoughts? Also, please don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell for all alerts. It doesn't cost you anything, but it does make a huge difference for my channel. Thank you so much for watching. See you next time.